Welcome to the Tune Into Yourself podcast. I am your host, Dr. Beverly Foster Hines, Executive and Business Coach. In this program, we share information which will help you make decisions which are in alignment with your true selves and which will help take you to the next level in your career, business, and life. Our guest today is Dr. Kizanne James-McCarthy. She's a multi-award winning development professional, Chevening Scholar, reproductive health consultant, and physician with a passion for global health. Welcome, Kizanne. How are you
Thank you for
today?
having me. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, great. All right. I'm glad that you could join us. Now, Kizanne, you have many accomplishments over the years. Did you always know that you wanted to be a medical doctor?
I did. Interestingly, I went to a primary school where the teacher read Ben Carson's book, Think Big, to the class. Every day she would read a chapter from the book. And most of the class became doctors in the future, ironically. So I guess that did help to have that influence. But since I was a kid, learning about Ben Carson's story, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be someone that helps people, and I loved working in science and learning about science. It was really the career that I wanted to do.
Okay, great. All right. So you knew from a young age.
Yeah.
And in moving from your primary school and that journey to be a medical doctor, we all know that that is a long journey. What would you say are some key highlights that you would have had on that journey?
Well, I didn't have a particularly easy journey. I'm from a very humble family. My mom was a security guard, and we didn't have much growing up. We, in fact, needed support from teachers for food and transport to get to school, and we missed school a lot because not all the time we could afford to go to school. So when we did finish school, I didn't get the grades I needed to get into med school on a scholarship. And because my mom was a security guard, there was no way that we could pay tuition on our own. So I had to work really hard. I applied for scholarships. I applied to the government and to different businesses asking for funding to go to med school. I didn't get anything. So in the end, I had to work. I worked three jobs. I was about 17 at the time, three jobs for a year and a half to earn one semester's tuition, but not to do medicine because I couldn't afford tuition to do medicine, but to do biology. So I went to the University of the Southern Caribbean, as it's called now. Before it was called Caribbean Union College. That's when I was a student there, so a few years ago. And I did a biology degree, but there wasn't GATE at the time. In Trinidad, there is this government assistance for tuition
Yes.
expansion. I hope I'm calling it correctly, but it's a fund that Trinidadians get to go to school. But there wasn't that in those days when I went to CUC. So I had to work and put myself through school and beg for money from different funds. Um, but when I was in my first semester in school, after working a year and a half to save money for that first semester, I had a traumatic experience and had to drop out of school for a year and a half again. So I took a while to finish my first degree because I had challenges financially and I had, different things happening in my life that prevented me from just having streamlined process of going to school. But after I finished my first degree in biology, which eventually happened, so most of us applied to Jamaica. That's where we got it. So we went to Jamaica, and that was my first time leaving Trinidad and Tobago. It was exciting, it was scary as a young person. And also, I didn't have all the money I needed. But with faith, I decided that I would go. So that was in 2010, and I went to Jamaica and started medical school finally after 7 years of trying to get into school.
Okay. You mentioned the book. the book Think Big, um, you mentioned persisting in your dream to be a medical doctor despite the challenges of that you would have gone through. What do you think help you to keep pushing? Because a lot of people give up, So what do you think
Yeah.
help you to keep pushing?
I think that's a very good question. I've been asked that before, because my challenges didn't end even when I got into med school. As you could imagine, that was another bowl of challenges, and um, I think I really wanted a better life for my family, for myself. I know how hard my mom worked to give us the opportunities we had. She didn't get to finish high school. She didn't have support. She was a single mom, and she did everything she could to make sure that we would go to school. And just watching her dedication to that, she could have given up on us as well, and done other things if she wanted to, but she really invested in us. And I'm happy to say that my siblings and I are doing well now, because of her influence. And so she always pushed us forward, and that regardless of what's happening, we had this mantra, I guess, inside, regardless of what's happening, we must push forward. This is temporary, we'll get better. Even though now I'm adjusting that a bit now, because I think self-care is also important. But in those days it was survival, and it's different when you're just trying to make it to the end. So yeah, that's what I think really pushed me to continue.
Okay, all right, good. Um, Now and I'm going back again to this book, Think Big. I mean, does anything stick out for you, resonate with you from that book that you might have carried or you carry with you?
I think it's the same attitude of pushing forward regardless of what's happening, because Ben Carson also had a single parent household, and his mom didn't know how to read. She used to pretend that she could read to encourage him to read and do his schoolwork. Um, and she again sacrificed for him. And I could relate a lot to that story as a child. Again, because we were really poor, we would be teased a lot. We didn't have those
Mhm.
brand name sneakers and stuff. In fact, our shoes had holes at the bottom, and we would put newspaper um, when it got holes to
Yeah.
protect our feet from touching the ground. I remember doing that all the time. After a while, your shoes got worn, and so you just stuff with newspaper and layer it up. That's how hard it was. Um, and so seeing another black, and that's very important to me. Now I live in a white country, and I've worked in countries where it's
Mhm.
predominantly white. It's very important to me to um, feel comfortable as a black person, and to feel confident, because we tend to make ourselves, or feel like we need to shrink ourselves, but we shouldn't. um, and so just being able to relate to that again was very important. Another thing I need to add is that
Mhm.
in my early years, my family is very religious. In my early years, we grew up in the church, and the church was very pivotal as well in grounding us, in supporting us. Um, I was very active in the community, and did a lot of community projects, and I took that right through my life. And I think that's why I ended up in the career path I'm in, and had the opportunities I had because of the skills I learned from church. Going standing up in front of the pulpit to lead choral singing, or and those are things that you develop leadership skills, and you develop the ability to speak to a crowd, and to be a leader. And also the church also gave us that emotional support. And when mommy couldn't be around, because as a security guard, sometimes she'd be out, she would do 24-hour shifts, 36-hour shifts, sometimes 48-hour shifts. So we wouldn't see her for a couple of days. We had that church family who might step in, and mentors who would step in. There was a couple people um, really, really stepped in, and was that surrogate parent for us
Mm,
when things became really overwhelming for mommy. So I think that, when they say it's a village that raises a child, and I know the culture changes a bit now,
mm,
and people are more isolated in their family groups, but
yeah,
it's really important to let our children interact and meet with people in the community, because that's where they become grounded and well-rounded, regardless of what challenges they might be facing in their own lives.
right. I hear you. I hear you. Now, in terms of the strengths, we kind of touched on one. You talked about pushing through, but what what strengths would you say have helped you? And how do you maybe continue to build on those strengths?
I think one of my strengths is my compassion and my ability to relate and empathize with others. I've had many medical challenges, and one in particular, again, happened when I was in medical school, where I was diagnosed with a rare disease and needed to have surgery within the month. And so I had to go back to Trinidad in 2012 to have this surgery. And so I had to stop school again, while again pursuing my dream. Um, and there's a thing in med school, you want to continue school with your academic year. You follow, your academic year. And I had to go to a lower academic year with new students and find new friends and readjust to the system again when I came back.
Hmm.
Because of all these challenges, health challenges, because it wasn't easy trying to keep emotionally grounded when all these things were happening. I think I was able to tap into that. And when I have patients, I don't speak to patients like I'm better than them and I know anything more than they know.
Hmm.
I trust what they say, and and we have I would say non-hierarchical relationship. They could call me by my first name. I don't have this, so doctor this or whatever. We
Right.
just converse because we're all people. We're all going through our challenges, and we're just here to help each other. And I think that's what is one of my strengths. Another strength I would say is my ability to be a leader. Again, my leadership style is a bit different. I am an introvert. I'm on the quiet side. But because I trust people and because of my relationship with people, I try to look into the strengths of others and tap into that and give them opportunities to develop that. And so I think I'm really good with managing teams because of that, because I make the environment as neutral as possible. There's in this, they should be afraid to talk to me about any questions or any concerns, because I think the team has all the answers. The manager or the person in charge supposed to really just support that team. You're there to
Mhm.
serve. You're not there to impose yourself on others. So that's one of the other strengths I developed, and I think that happened from many years of working in community service, being involved in church, and also being somebody who I guess was the underdog in a lot of circumstances growing up and in my career.
Right. I hear you. And that emphasis on working with people's strengths is so key because, that energizes not only you, but it energizes the people themselves. So they want to give more. Yeah, they want to give more. Now, in terms of the biggest challenge that you would have faced so far, because I mean you would have faced many challenges. What would you say it is, and how have you been able to overcome it?
I think one of my biggest challenges was when I started working more on the global sphere and more internationally. Um, Being black, and I'm not very traditional. My dreadlocks and my piercings, and I am different and I'm comfortable with being different. um but people tend to think you're not equal because of your skin color or because of your gender or whatever it is, your sexual orientation, whatever it is. um And when you step out of where you're comfortable, which might be your culture, in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, it's a new ball game. It's a new thing to adjust to. You're finding your foot, and you're also trying to, I wouldn't say prove, but show your skills on this level. And so that was very challenging. I think even when I was looking back, some of my biggest challenges would have been in my childhood when I didn't know what was going to come up ahead. So that, I didn't always have that faith that things were going to be better. So it seemed like I was moving blindly at the time. I didn't know it was going to work out and I'd become a doctor, and I would have, all these experiences. And in the end, at the time, it was like I didn't have any food. I was being teased. We didn't have all we needed, and my mom was in debt, and we had all these challenges. And sometimes it was really hard to believe that things do get better, will get better, and that the work I was going to do on and just focusing on my studies would pay off someday. It doesn't always pay off, and that's the thing that we need to understand. Sometimes putting your best at something doesn't mean it would be guaranteed. That's the reality of life. And so I knew that. I also had a lot of disappointments. And so I was very aware and I guess very mature for my age as well,
Mhm.
because I didn't have that security that persons who had more stability in their households or in their environments had to be very street smart, know how to manage things. Because if I ran out of money, I didn't have mommy or daddy to call to replenish stock. So this one to save me if I made a bad mistake. There wasn't any of that. So I needed to learn to make decisions quite young and make good decisions, because the consequences of me making a mistake would have been detrimental because of the avenues and resources that were available to me at the time. That has changed a lot now, but
Mm.
when you're young and you don't have the support systems, it's a bit difficult.
And you mentioned that it is like almost, this is just me paraphrasing, it sounds to me a lot like you were like on a knife edge. You were walking on a knife edge a lot,
Yeah.
and or a tightrope. And so, I mean, how, the name of the program is Tune Into Yourself, and I am especially interested in how people go about making decisions, because some people say they follow their head, their heart, their gut. I mean, when you were at that age and making these decisions, I mean, I don't know, what, if you look back now, what technique did you use to know that these decisions, and has that changed?
I think I have a good answer for that, because when I was in high school, I had a teacher that used to tell the class, when you do something, think about how it would impact you in the next 5 years. And that really stood out to me. And when I made decisions, and I think that's why I do leadership and strategy now, is because I think about what would be the consequence of doing this. If I started smoke weed now, if I, got pregnant very young,
Hmm.
what would that do in terms of the bigger scheme of my life? And so I was always guided by, if I do this, how could it positively impact me, or how could it negatively impact me? And that was really helpful for me to know and to decide and to be able to envision the future, um, based on what I was going to do, the type of friends I chose. I was very careful with the friends I chose. I didn't want to be with people that would lead me astray, because I know what it's like to be poor and to have difficulties. So it wasn't about, I didn't have the teenage rebellious thing, because I know that making certain decisions had certain consequences. Because of that, thinking what would be the impact um, if I did that.
Right, right. You were very mature for that age, to be thinking about the future, because a lot of people just living in now, and
Yeah.
and And do you still make decisions, would you say you use your heart, your head, your gut? Because I mean, you sound like, use your head there. And also, you have a vision and skill. So, and you can common sense, which is not common, so that you are aware of certain things. Do you still follow that same, if you think about it, if you reflect, do you still follow that same sort of process now?
Yeah, I think I use multiple techniques depending on the circumstance. Um, so there are sometimes I make very emotional decisions that I would say tap into my intuition, but they're not usually right. I think what serves me the most is that logical think about the consequences decisions versus the ones where I go with how I feel only. Um, so I feel like emotions are dynamic and they change based on what you're going through. Anything could affect how you feel. So I think I lean towards more, you know, the I guess the mental part. But
Okay.
I wouldn't say fully. I would say
Right.
sometimes I go
Mm-hmm.
with how I feel more. But it depends on what the cost would be. Um, you
And
know,
mm-hmm.
it does depend on what the cost depends on how heavy that decision is and what it's going to do to impact my life.
Right. And you're based in the UK now.
Mhm.
Um, Tell us a little bit about how you reached from Trinidad, and then you studied in Jamaica, and now you're in the UK. How did that, if you could give us brief
Uh,
snapshot of how that evolved.
oh, so when I returned to med school after having surgery, I decided to change my life and change my approach to things. When I started med school, and going to med school was my dream and was the most important thing to me, I dropped everything. All I wanted to do was study. So there was no trying to make friends, there was no taking care of my health, there was no balance. It was just studying. And that wasn't me because even back home, regardless of what's happening, I was always in some extracurricular thing, doing community work, working for some charity, volunteering, doing something in church. And I think that helps to give you balance as well, even though you're also serving. And so when I returned in 2012, I think 2013 to med school, I became highly involved in extracurricular curricular activities, which was kind of rare for med students. Med students mainly study. And because of that, some of my work started to get the attention of some of the people in the community and government officials and stuff. And I started to get awards for leadership and for my community involvement, and eventually got into international fellowship called Women Deliver Young Leaders in 2015. um, and they helped push my career forward as well. I got different opportunities in my final year of med school. I went to the UN, attended meetings there. I would speak on behalf of young people and healthcare and women's health. And it just spiraled into more and more opportunities. When I finished med school, I got a scholarship from the British government to do any masters I wanted, and fully funded. So that's a Chevening Scholarship. That's a UK
Mm-hmm.
government scholarship program for global leaders. So I came here, and I did a master's in leadership and management in health and social care in Southampton University, where I lecture now. I'm a part-time lecturer at Southampton University now, and I then got another scholarship to study in Oslo. So I moved to Norway and did international community health, um, and started working for global NGOs afterwards. Currently, I work for Frida, the Young Feminist Fund, as the resource mobilization manager, managing a portfolio of about 5 million US dollars. But I'm soon going to be transitioning back to teaching and medicine within the next few months. So
Mm-hmm.
it started with doing community work and being involved and just taking more and more chances. I guess I must admit that when I came back, I wanted to grow. And so I did courses. I did public speaking courses. I hired a coach using my money. Yeah, using my funds I didn't have, but it was important for me to develop certain skills. And because I did the public speaking course at UE. I had to pay separate and go to a different campus to do it. Again, being able to speak is very important if you want to, improve your career. So that also helped me in getting other opportunities.
I must say, I really admire, I mean, I'm listening to you, and I really admire what should I say, the whole community service, the serving aspect comes across very strongly in everything that you've said from childhood to where you are now. And I really hope that people get the message that serving, how to put it, giving of yourself, um, it opens up so many opportunities. And you're not doing it for opportunities, but it just does. I mean, you're doing something that's coming from your heart. It's coming from your heart.
Yeah,
It's coming from your heart. And I'm sure you would have had to juggle. I mean, medical school is no easy feat. So to juggle, the community service along with medical school, etc. And to continue and to grow as you have, it is a pleasure to hear. It's a pleasure to hear.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, if it is, I'm sure you would interact with young persons, etc. As you've said, what advice would you give to a young person today, who mightn't be sure of where it is they might want to go and what it is they want to do? What piece of advice would you give them?
I think the only way to know what you're good at and to know what's meant for you is to try things. And even if you change, it's fine. I studied medicine and then actually don't practice medicine, and I've changed working in different areas as well for so long, and that's okay. Sometimes it isn't about knowing exactly what you need to do. It's just about doing. So start somewhere. Start with things that you like. It could be something as do it. You're really good at doing that's fine. If you're really good at doing makeup, see what you could do to push yourself furthest as you can, as far as you can, sorry, in that field. If you're really good at cooking, look at opportunities to develop that and to push that as far as you can, because there is no box, there's no perfect thing. We don't, when I was in school, it was you became a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a teacher. There was this set thing, and the world is changing. It's no longer these set careers. It's so wide and vast, and it's just about you. And because of technology as well, you could put yourself and market yourself online and have access to markets and customers all around the globe if you want to. So I would say, one, think about what you like and what you enjoy, what you're very good at. Listen to others, and if somebody says, you're really good at baking or whatever it is, you're really good at maths or science or well, you could be academic as well. Tap into that, try different things, and research people in that, people who are successful in that. Try to reach out to them. You could find them online, message them on Facebook. People are always willing to support young people who are trying, and look for avenues to develop that skill and that inner talent in you. um and if it is an academic route, again, push yourself in that. If it is you deciding to be a doctor, try to be the best that you can, or a lawyer, whatever it is. Try to be the best in what you're doing by exposing yourself to other ways of thinking and opportunities that are out there.
Yes, I hear you, and that is
That's
something.
what I'd say.
Yeah, is start somewhere. I think I think that is imperative, and not look for the perfect something before you start, because
Mm-hmm.
you might never reach the perfect anything, and then you will be stuck there not having started anything. Is there anything else you would like to share, Kizanne?
There was a quote that I would paraphrase that I think really helped me when I was younger, and it is like, far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, checkered by failure than to rank with those poor souls who neither enjoy nor suffer much because they live in a great twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. So the point of life is to live it. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. You will make mistakes. I can guarantee that you will fail and you will make mistakes, but that's how you grow and that's how you learn. And there's nobody that could teach you that. That just comes from experience. You have to be willing to try. And it's always better to try and put yourself out there to do something that might be scary because it would pay off in the end. One of the things that I did that I was totally afraid of, public speaking is one. The first time I gave a speech, I ran off the stage crying before I even finished it. And then years later, I was speaking globally and did TED Talks and other big things because I didn't give up. And so don't be afraid to try something because it's scary, because it's always going to be better to try it than to not try at all.
Yes. Yes, it's always good to try and not try at all. You don't want to live with regret, that you
No,
didn't do. And people always say they always regret what they didn't do. I mean, what they did, they did. But what they didn't do, I mean, the time would have passed. Well, thank you so much, Kizanne. I really, I enjoyed speaking with you a lot. I am also an introvert myself, and people have all these ideas about, I don't know, if you're introvert, you can't do this and you can't do that, and really,
not sure.
yeah, I hold with the mantra, and I think it's just people don't understand what introversion means. Introversion is not
No,
introversion is basically where you get your energy from. That's what introvert means. It means that we need quiet time, space,
exactly.
etc. It does not mean that we want to be in a box and shut away. you know,
Yes, it
um,
doesn't mean that you're shy
no,
or can't do something.
yeah, so thank you so much, and I want to wish you all the best. Yeah, I hope that
Thank you, and thanks for having me.